2 Saturdays remain before championship weekend. Arguments for and against teams wind up being circular. Some like strength of schedule, then there's power rankings, there's football judgment. But moments come when you must prove your worth. And Indiana has that coming up Saturday in Columbus. So far, they haven't been deemed just a product of the schedule, and they figure to be in the top 5 tonight. But they might find out if they have margin for error by where BYU lands. Just how damaging can a single loss be? The Cougars' stumble might have even put Boise State in position to play for a top 4 seed in a bye if they win their conference. And just how will the logjam of SEC teams, all of whom have beaten up on each other, even the ones that have only played one of them, and then there's one that hasn't played any of them yet, how will they stack up all of those guys? We're going to show you all of the rankings and then show you how, if these were the final ones, how it would project into the brackets of the college football top 25 playoff rankings, brought to you by Goodyear. And oh, look at that, another Big Ten team sneaking into the mix. Illinois making it in.
Amazing. That's going to be, that makes justifying where Penn State's at so much easier.
Wow. So cynical. UNLV. Now, UNLV has a little bit of a tough road to try to get into the Mountain West Championship game. They don't play Colorado State. People have forgotten Colorado State hasn't lost a game in the Mountain West. That would be potentially Boise's opponent, assuming those are the teams that make it. Missouri, after a heartbreaking loss to South Carolina, still ranked at number 23. Let's see 22.
Wow.
Iowa State back in after losing a couple of Cyclones, now 8-2. They still have a path to get to the Big 12.
Yeah, they still have a path, and this speaks to what I was talking about with the Big 12 being wide open. I'm still looking for Arizona State to jump on this board after winning 3 in a row. Let's see if they're in here somewhere, Booger.
Might be coming up soon, like now.
There they are.
I didn't know that, but I figured they had to be in here someplace. Arizona State lost a couple of conference games, Greg. You sort of forgot about them, but they've been roaring back strong.
Man, I'm so happy to see this. So happy for Kenny Dillingham. This program, they deserve it. And they have a big opportunity this week as a favorite to host a BYU team that might be reeling a little bit. And this is the best team that no one's really talking about. They have a game changer at running back in Cam Scatabo. Their quarterback, Levitt, has done an amazing job this year. They have a go-to guy at wide receiver, and the defense is progressively improving. I'm really happy to see them in this spot. I'm telling you what, they are a team you don't want to play here down the stretch.
You know, there's a burger now in Tempe named after Cam Scatabo. Number 20, up 5 spots to Tulane Green Wave. Now, Tulane and Army, that's set for the American Championship game.
And how about the game Tulane just had this weekend against Navy and what their defense did, holding Navy to 113 total yards.
Who's senior day is that?
19. There they are. Army also up 5 spots, undefeated. Army non-conference game against Notre Dame that really could help their resume. The second easiest schedule in the entire country up to this point. Big game coming up for them against the Fighting Irish at Yankee Stadium. South Carolina, 3 tough, close losses, but they move up 3 spots to number 18 at 17. Clemson Tigers, those 2 teams will play a week from Saturday to close out the season, both stepping out of conference this week before their showdown. At number 16, Travis Hunter and the Colorado Buffaloes, the Heisman Trophy leader, favorite, one would think.
At Kansas. Kansas is a team that nobody wants to see right now because they are on fire.
How about this? The worst preseason prediction I made was that Kansas would be in the playoff. But as it turns out, Jayhawks might decide who is in the playoff. They may not get there themselves.
They're about 4 bounces away from being in the mix.
Yeah. They took Iowa State out, then they took BYU out. Now they've got Colorado. A&M. A&M has a really tricky game at Auburn coming up this weekend before the finale against the Longhorns in College Station on the final Saturday of the regular season. At 14, this could really be instructive right here. BYU falls 8 spots after losing to Kansas. The Cougars 9-1, but down 8 on the way to win them. Still in the mix at 9-1. SMU, number 13, they're up a spot. Rhett Lashley's going to join the show a little bit later on. We'll talk about him. SMU can win at Virginia and get in the ACC championship game.
BYU beat SMU.
Head-to-head can't mean everything because we just talked about those SEC teams. At some point, you have to.
But it has to mean something.
Now.
It has to mean something.
I saw it happen on the field.
Can I tell you this? It does mean something, or they wouldn't be being considered. How about that? I'm just saying, all of it. But it's a fair point if you want to stand there and say that. Okay, so Boise State now back in at number 12.
Boise State is going to be at 12 or 13. It seems like they cannot get above this area in the rankings. And again, it only sets up, because if teams ahead of them keep losing and they stay right there, Rece, it just sets up that the Power Four will get those top 4 seeds.
And get those buys.
Well, I mean, you got a couple of Big 12 and ACC teams right there, too. Tennessee, after losing at Georgia on Saturday night, they fall 4 spots to number 11. Let's get into the top 10 now. At number 10, Georgia Bulldogs, first team out last week, moving up to number 10 after beating Tennessee. The toughest schedule in the country by far. A lot of them on the road. Dogs at 8-2. At number 9. Hotty toddy. Now there is one where just a couple of weeks ago that Ole Miss won the game, so Ole Miss is 1 spot ahead of Georgia.
And this is a perfect spot. When I saw Tennessee at 11, Georgia at 10, this is a perfect spot for Ole Miss, seeing what they did to Georgia on the field. It wasn't even a close game, so you had to have Ole Miss ranked ahead of Georgia. Great job by the committee.
At number 8, Miami. Now, Miami is not atop the ACC standings in the conference, but Miami, the highest ranked team from the ACC, and Hurricanes, a couple of games in conference, yet they are not yet guaranteed to make the conference title game. Alabama moves up 3 spots, mostly by virtue of the teams around them losing and above them. So Alabama, now as you go to that circular thing, Alabama beat Georgia, beat Tennessee, but Tennessee beat Alabama, and they're ranked 4 spots behind them. Let's look at number 6. The Fighting Irish of Notre Dame, we mentioned the game that Notre Dame has against Army this weekend, and they'll finish up against USC on the road. Let's look at the top 5. The Indiana Hoosiers. Schedule ranked below 100, one of the easier ones in the country, but this is a big test for them on Saturday against Ohio State to prove they belong.
This is the only test for Indiana in this entire season to prove that they belong. They're in a position to go on the road to Ohio State. Now, they don't even have to win the game, Rece, but they do have to play a close game to prove they belong where they are.
Here's the question I would say to you. Would you have said the same thing about Michigan? Because their metrics and their schedule compares to what Michigan was last year.
Michigan who?
The Michigan. The
500 ball club Michigan, they're not in this show. No. You got nothing to say about Michigan.
He's talking about last year.
Last year's Michigan.
Last year's Michigan. Yeah.
Last year's Michigan still had to beat Ohio State.
Number 4.
Well, I mean, I think that's why we just saw what happened to BYU.
Right.
They had some close games. Indiana hasn't had close games.
That's right.
But Indiana hasn't played tough teams. So we'll find out on Saturday. I think it is incumbent on the Hoosiers to play well. Number 4, Penn State. Penn State's only loss coming at the hands of Ohio State. How about number 3? Texas Longhorns. So this is going to be Big Ten domination for the second straight week in the top 5, as the Longhorns are the highest ranked SEC team. Ohio State and Indiana on Saturday at the Horseshoe, and Oregon, which the Big Ten went through, I think it was 18 different potential combination scenarios. And the worst that can happen to the Ducks is that they would end up finishing second in the Big Ten. So they're in the conference championship game no matter what happens in there. The bracket with the way it looked. Now, this is not a prediction. This is just based on the rankings, how it would look to give you an idea. Conference champions would look like this: Oregon, Texas, Miami, and Boise State. Because of where Boise State is ranked ahead of BYU from the Big 12. So right now, Boise State would, in fact, maybe there might be a ceiling on the ranking, Joey, but on the seeding, they're enough right now to get that other bye. And then BYU is the 5th team in with the automatic bid.
And it brings into question who wins the Big 12.
Yes.
Who wins the ACC.
Right.
And because these conferences are still wide open, Boise State might have a chance to stay in that 4th spot.
Okay, so let's show you, based on the rankings on the left, who would have home games. Those are the teams that are seeded, not ranked, seeded 5 through 8. Ohio State, Notre Dame, Penn State, Indiana, all would have home games. So let's look at the matchup. Oh, the Big Ten loves the idea of getting some of those SEC teams up in the cold, and all of the SEC teams in this scenario would be on the road. Alabama at Notre Dame in an 8-9 matchup. Georgia would be at Penn State, hearkening back to Sugar Bowls of years gone by. And Ole Miss and Indiana, who played in the bowl game a couple of years ago, would meet in a 7-10 matchup. So that's Look, again, the committee's not predicting who will win the conference championship games. This is simply based on who they think is best right now and who the highest ranked teams are in those respective conferences. Once selection day comes, in order to be in those quarterfinals, again, you have to have won your conference championship game. Those are the only ones eligible for that.